Okay.
Well, good morning, Ecstatic Business Show listeners. I am so excited to introduce you to Autumn Skye. She is an artist and inspiration for many people. Her art is beautiful. I can't wait to share some of the pictures of the work that she does. You can find her at Autumn Skye Art on Instagram and Facebook. And today we're going to be sharing a little bit about like the nature of why art and creativity, what is really going on under the surface. I know that there's a lot of people who want to be artists, and I'm currently going through The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. So this is very top of mind for me. And I feel like this is such a powerful conversation for creatives who call themselves entrepreneurs. So Autumn, I'm so glad that you're here. And yes, your work is such an inspiration on its own. And I'm so glad that we get this chance to unpack it together.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the invitation. I'm honored.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love for us to start with a story. So I'd love for you to share something from your history. We call them sacred success stories, but a time when maybe it didn't feel like everything was working out perfectly and you weren't at the top of your game, and maybe all the blank hit the fan and you were and a down a valley as opposed to a mountain. And I think for us, why that's really important is I feel like this is where we grow and where we put down roots and where we establish the depth of our work. And for you, I know as an artist, especially having that well of experience really allows you to draw images to the surface when you need them. So I'd love to just open it up and hear one of your stories that was kind of a pivotal moment for you.
Hmm. Well, as long as I can remember, I've made art. And
Mm,
even as a child, I had this strong calling, this like knowing that I was here to make art and to share it with the world. So I didn't
mm,
have this exterior concept of one day I'm going to be an artist. I just knew what I was here for and I knew what I was here to do, and I just wanted to get to work. And I always also had sort of an entrepreneurial mindset. Um,
mhm.
from when I was 6 years old, I would make friendship bracelets with my friend and buy cartons of ice cream and a pack of cones, and we would sell ice cream cones and friendship bracelets on the community center steps.
Love
So it just always, to me, was money, was energy, was freedom. And this
it.
concept of like just being able to be effective in the world, being able to
Mhm,
share more,
mhm.
um, this calling in abundance in order to share. And
Yes.
it really just it grew from there. Since I was 13, I was doing Christmas craft fairs and summer art fairs, and just always experimenting and adapting, trying to explore different mediums and different techniques, different products, to see if they would be popular. And so
Mhm,
everything from hand painted Christmas cards to hand etched wine glasses, and everything in between, button bracelets and necktie purses and all the things. I just was always crafting and always creating and just wanting to explore the world of art and inspiration and sharing it with the world and marketing.
mhm,
So all through my teens, I did that. I was very supported by my family, very supported in my high school, and very just empowered consistently to make art and to share it. So I'm so grateful for that. And growing up, like as of 12 years old, I started working full time every summer. So I was waitressing, and then all through my teens and early 20s, I was waitressing and then making my art and doing little events and hanging my art in cafes on the side, just to sort of
mm,
explore that. But it didn't really occur to me that I could just take a leap and just support myself solely off my art. It just, I was making good
mm,
money waitressing, and so I didn't imagine that I needed to change anything about that. I was still able to paint a lot and keep exploring and keep traveling, and I felt really liberated by that lifestyle.
mhm,
And then I met a man who was had just moved to my little town, and
mhm,
with his friend they had planned to open a music and arts cafe. And
Mm,
since I was a very young teenager, I always had this dream of having a music and arts cafe, having somewhere
wow.
that was hip and had music and had art shows and had DJs and great food and
Mm,
great coffee. And so we connected and we started seeing each other. And he, a couple months later, said, "Well, we're starting this project. Do you want to join us as our third partner?" Because they didn't really have somebody to handle this, like, the front of house. They didn't
mhm.
have any serving experience or any experience really, other than being creative, musician, passionate creatives. And so I joined them with that, and in doing so, I was 20. I just turned 22.
Okay.
I had just gotten back from Thailand, traveling there for the winter, and Cambodia and Laos, and just exploring. And I
Mm,
arrived home to my little town, and within a couple months, we opened this cafe. And I quit my bartending job in order to do so.
mm,
And so then, pretty much a year or two went by before I
mhm.
realized that in quitting my bartending job, I had I had surrendered into my art being my mainstay, because anybody who's
Mhm.
ever owned a restaurant knows that you don't make money from a restaurant. It's
Yeah.
very much a sinkhole, unless unless you got some alchemy or you live in a really busy city or something. But this is a small town. There are
Yeah.
many hours that nobody comes in. We were also open. We really wanted to be in service to the community. So we were open 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is not sustainable, as we discovered.
Yeah.
Um, but it really, so not only was I supporting myself and my partner, I was also investing in this business,
Mm,
all grounded and supported by my art. So I
wow.
was hanging my art in the restaurant, and having shows and getting really creative with different kinds of events. And so we had that restaurant for 4 years, and it was very tumultuous. My relationship with that man was very up and down. It was very challenging at times, and the
Mm,
restaurant really reflected that. So after 4 years, we parted ways and closed the restaurant. But in doing so, that whole experience just sort of pushed me, without me realizing it, pushed me into being a full-time artist, into living
mhm.
solely off of my art. And now
Yes.
it's been another 20 years since we opened. So yeah, almost more than 15 years since we closed the cafe. And yeah, now it's very much my full-time mission and focus, and it's just continues to unfold.
I love that. And it's a beautiful reflection of just how you were just doing the work, right? I know I'm here to make art. I'm just going to make art. I know I need to support myself. Oh, wait, now my art is supporting me. And I feel like there's very much a parallel for a lot of entrepreneurs who, when they're starting, they're investing a lot more into their art, their creative passion, their mission, their business, than the business is supporting them. And then there becomes this moment of like, oh, wait, now the tides are turned. Now this thing that I have built is now actually an active participant
Yeah.
in my well-being and is supporting me instead of me supporting it. And that you don't always know when that tide turns. Like you don't always notice until you're back in flow and you're like, oh, hey, look, like this is new and different. So that's a beautiful reflection that we want our businesses and our art to support us, and sometimes it takes a while to prime the pump. So my
Mhm.
first just inspiration is that you were willing to do this as from a child through your 20s, 2 decades of just, you know what, we're going to prime the pump and we're going to see what happens. And I love how you kept being iterative with the marketplace. What sells? What does the market want? But also staying true to your mission. And I wanted to see if share uh, from see if I can share my screen um, for so you guys can see some of her art on Instagram. If you want to check out Instagram, she has this beautiful way of combining spiritual. If I hover over them, it doesn't work. Spiritual images with this, I would say, almost fantastical but realism. Um, the faces are so expressive and the imagery women, their hair tied together in a mandala formation. This one in particular just caught my eye. This phoenix rising, this woman with hair of flaming feathers rising is just stunning. Um, and so I'm so grateful personally that you committed to your mission and your vision and making this art and bringing it to the world. And for people who are wanting to bring their art into the world, to birth it, to build their business or their vision or their mission, share a little bit for me. What inspiration or encouragement would you give to them? What is it that sustained you during the hard times?
Hmm. I think to really encourage people to not be afraid of baby steps. You know,
Mm.
it's and also to not be afraid of giant leaps of faith, but to really just pay attention to your body and to your heart and to where the next step seems to fall. And I
Mhm.
think that a lot of the time, like in my experience, that giant leap of faith happened, it's almost that it happened with me. I didn't take that leap of faith. Yes, it was a leap of faith to quit my job and open a restaurant. That's a ridiculous thing for a 22-year-old to do. but but the like diving headfirst into the arms of my art as
Mm.
my livelihood,
Mhm.
that I didn't really notice because it just happened naturally. And so
Mhm.
to really, there's a paradox of like push into your edges
Mhm.
and like find those places that feel scary or risky or sticky but you're feeling called to, and then also be aware of things that just aren't feeling in alignment. So
Mm.
there's really a discernment, and I feel like that discernment is very much rooted in our body. If it
Mm.
feels exciting, it might also feel a little bit scary, but
Mhm.
that is what can propel us forward. It's
Mhm.
okay to feel scared at a leap of faith or a tiny baby step. Those can be scary too. You know,
Mhm.
even just putting a price tag on your art when
Yeah.
hanging in a cafe, that's a baby step, but that can feel very scary. It can feel, people can come up with an imposter syndrome and who
Mhm.
am I? And all of a sudden you're putting a commodification on something that brings you joy and that's coming from your heart.
Mm.
There's a lot of different things wrapped up in that. But to really tune into your body and tune into your heart about what is the next step for me in my business or in my calling, in my offering to the world. And if it feels scary and simultaneously there's a draining of energy, then know that that maybe isn't in alignment or it's not the time for that. So to
Mm.
really pay attention to what is invigorating or what is depleting. And
Mm.
and then constantly be paying attention and adapting. The
Mhm.
market right now, the art world is weird, right? There's like social media makes it so possible for the first time in forever, first time ever, artists are able to make a living from their art, connecting directly with an audience. This is
Yeah.
amazing. This is revolutionary as far as
Mhm.
human history goes. We don't rely on the church or on wealthy patrons. We don't have to go to an academy and study under a master. We
Mhm.
can just make art from our heart and share it
Yep.
with the world. And maybe it will even sell if we want that to be a part of the mission, or sometimes we want it to and it still doesn't, or sometimes we don't want it to and people still want it. Like, so it really, it's such a weird world. And now there's, you know, there's digital art, there's AI art, there's a flooding of images online, and the landscape of the art world, the art business world, is very much in flux. Things are
Mm.
changing. Things are going to continue to change, and we need to stay adaptable. So like with any business, the the technological revolution that's happening right now is going
Mhm.
to sweep every business and every vocation, every creative output that
Mhm.
humans typically have had the monopoly on, now don't. So, how can we stay relevant? How can we stay inspired and empowered? How can we continue to make a living if this has
Mhm.
been our livelihood? How can we
Mhm.
still maybe you're just starting out and you want to be an artist, or you want to be a musician, or you want to be a podcaster, or whatever you want to do, that you
Mhm.
want to start a business that's a creative business, but you're also seeing simultaneously technology is replacing aspects of that. Is it
Yeah.
still a good idea? I don't know at this point. Is it still, you know, 2 years ago, I would have wholeheartedly said anybody can make a living from their art.
Mm.
Quit your day job and dive in. And
Yeah.
now it's just it's a little bit different. And so, how do we shift with these shifting times and not be disheartened
Mm.
when things are constantly shifting under our feet?
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And that is relevant, I think, to every human all the time. But I love how you're bringing up this advent of AI, because I feel like there's a lot of things that in business as well, copywriters, where do I fit when ChatGPT can write a sales page better than I can in 30 seconds? Um, and it is this question of how do we shift, uh, what does it mean to be human, is I really think the core issue. What does it mean to be an artist? For you, as you're engaging in this dialogue, um, what are you feeling? And I want to start with a quote that's just been, ever since I read it, like it's been tickling my brain. You say, art is simultaneously trivial and essential. A painting is simply just colorful mud smeared on fabric, pretty and frivolous to our amusement, but it also has the potential to move mountains, to start revolutions, shift paradigms, and present paths forward towards wholeness. And I want to bring that quote in as part of this dialogue, because it's not just the product, right? So there may come a day when you can type a prompt in and you can make better art using your AI tech tool than you can with your paintbrush. And I don't know that that's the point of art. So for you, as you're wrestling with this question, what has that been bringing up for you of the purpose of art and the role of the artist in society?
Yeah. Well, that day is already here. It's been here for
Hmm.
months, if not a
Yeah.
year. It's
Yeah.
if we're thinking competitively, no human can compete with AI art.
Hmm.
It's just, especially now since AI knows how to do hands. That was like the last
That was the
frontier of
one
like,
thing.
oh, I know how to paint hands. That computer ain't got nothing on me. But so now that it knows how to paint hands, it's like I can't possibly compete with the perfection and the
Mm,
absolutely god-smacking beauty that
yeah.
is achievable through AI art.
Yeah.
Art, quote unquote. We AI images.
Yeah.
That said, there is something, even when an image is so beautiful, like it can stop you in your tracks. It's so beautiful, so striking, and there is something missing. And
Mm,
maybe that's just our analytical mind saying, oh, there's something missing. I know that's made by AI. And maybe in another year, we won't actually be able to tell the difference. And we'll
mhm,
see meaning where there is no meaning and feel heart where there was or wasn't any heart. Some people argue that AI does have soul. Like, who knows? It's so
mhm,
strange. But as an artist, to watch this developing over the last couple years,
mhm,
it's really it's devastating and terrifying and
mm,
so empowering in
mhm.
or motivating, not necessarily empowering, it's motivating. I have made more art in the last couple years than I've ever made, because
Ooh,
there's something like this human drive in me to run faster, to
mm,
get my hands dirty, to really carve these worlds out and to painstakingly make that art as good as I can make it. And maybe
mm,
that's partially, there's some competition in there of I have to now compete with perfection,
mm,
where perfection was always just an ideal that an artist would hold. It's incapacitating as a mind
mm.
state.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
when you have perfectionism, you will get nothing done.
Yeah.
So now I have to compete with very real, regular, visualizations of perfection coming up on my news feed, and everybody commenting and saying, wow, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Or commenting on AI image generating accounts saying you're so talented, and like this kind of thing. Where you're just like, oh my God, I just spent like 300 hours on a painting and I got a quarter of the comments that like you just,
Yeah.
it's such a strange landscape. And
Mm-hmm.
so to really just sit with that and sit with that in my meditation of painting in hundreds of
Mm-hmm.
hours, and like wondering, okay, am I going to become obsolete? Are artists going to become obsolete? Are screenwriters going to become obsolete?
Mm-hmm.
Writers are, musicians. It's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. It's going to be integrated everywhere. And I hope that the creatives of the world can continue to feel motivated to give their all,
Mm-hmm.
to fully like give more than their all, to just keep making art, because the art making is not
Mm.
about the end result. It's about the creative process.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I can type in a few words into a computer and come up with a pretty image,
Mm-hmm.
but the journey of creating that image is totally irreplaceable from the journey of actually sitting for tens or hundreds of hours in front of a canvas and
Yeah.
carving a world out of nothingness and struggling. We
Mm-hmm.
don't make art because it's easy. We make it because our soul is calling it forth. We write books. People spend years writing novels because it's in them and coming through them and they cannot deny it. People open businesses that, maybe there's already a restaurant on that street, but it's something in their soul's calling. Whatever it is that our soul is calling us to birth cannot be dictated because, oh, I could do it easier by cutting some creative parts of the process out.
Mm-hmm.
I learned so much about myself and about life and about the creative way and about living in this world, about humanity, by sitting in meditation in front of my canvas. And if I was to just be able to do that in the snap of a finger or the blink of an eye, I would bypass all of that depth of knowledge and wisdom that's available through the creative path.
Mm.
So, not for an instant do I want to bypass that just to arrive at some finish line,
Yeah.
because I feel like people, when they respond to art or music or food or some beautiful piece of dance, they
Mm.
see the heart and the sweat and the tears that is in that. They see the vulnerability and they see the authenticity. And yeah, you can make something that's striking and beautiful and you know dramatic to look at, but does it hold you? And do you see yourself in it?
Hmm.
It's just
I
a whole
love that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much to unpack there. I think it really, I wrote down, we don't make art because it's easy. We make art because our souls call us to do so. And what I've been thinking about is the revolution that happened in the world of painting when the camera was invented, right? So painters had been spending their lives seeking perfection. How do you capture every detail? You get to the Dutch, like the Flemish works, and they have these glorious bowls of fruit where you can see the fuzz on the peach and the drop of water with reflections. And like they were trying to capture this most exquisite, perfect detail. And then they developed a camera, and with a push of a button, you could capture it exactly. Not even just pretty close. No, perfect replication of reality in an instant. And what we see coming out of that is the impressionist, right? Cubism, right? This revolt against the camera of what does it mean to be an artist had to go a massive transformation. And the art is not trying to capture nature perfectly on canvas. Then art became, well, nope, art is to express our emotions and to capture a feeling, right? And so we saw this beautiful revolution that was inspired by technology. And I feel like we are going through an even more dramatic version of that, because now it's not just I can capture reality, I can capture fantasy. I can visualize a world that didn't exist before simply by typing it in with my fingers. Um, and what I thought was interesting when I first started using, I use Midjourney is my AI tool of preference. And when I started using Midjourney with my daughter, at first it was terrifying. Like, oh my gosh, I can make images, better images than I would spend hours and hours on a canvas. I can do it better in an instant on this thing. And that's when I had to say, okay, what's really going on here? And what I realized is this is a tool to, like, if you think of it as like a dialogue with this other entity, and almost like an assistant, and you can go back and forth, and I can have a vision and you can show me what you think, and then I can see what I want to translate it to. It made me wonder, is it possible for this to awaken new realms of imagination? So I think as humans, it's hard for us to create worlds that we can't see. Now you have a unique gift for this, that you are creating these fantastical, very real feeling images. But I think for most of the human race, if we can't see it, it's very hard for us to incarnate it in our lives. And so one of the, I think, positive possibilities with AI art is that it gives everybody, it puts the layperson who has no artistic talent, or has never awakened that side of themselves, a way to express their imagination in a way that they didn't have available to them before. So one of the things I'm curious about is, how do these technologies awaken our imagination? So in the same way that technology of social media democratized art for the artists, now everybody can monetize their art by sharing it directly with the buyer. It almost feels like AI is democratizing creativity. Now everybody can unlock their creative potential. You don't even need to study English to write a novel. You don't need to study painting to become an artist. And that can feel really scary for those of us who have undergone, like, I have my bachelor's degree in English and you studied painting, right? That we're like, wait, I took the time to master my craft, and now you're just pumping out these images. What do they really mean? So I think as this is leading us into what does it mean to be art, I think it is coming back to, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to express ourselves in any context, whether it is with words or it is with images? And that's one piece. And it may be that AI helps us do expression for the masses better than we could have without it. And for that, I'm excited. Like, I'm curious to see what that unlocks for the human race, to give everybody the means to express their creativity that they may not have ever realized was possible to them. And then the flip side is, I wonder how it's going to shape the craft, right? And this is where you said we do art because we have to, right? We make art because this is what our souls need to be doing. And it makes me wonder, I feel like there might be this, almost like, I think of it as like higher and lower art, and that might be unfair because right, we're going to produce a lot more volume of art visually and linguistically now than we have in the last 10,000 years. There is just going to be a profusion of creative expression in the world. And for those of us who love the craft, I think it's going to come back to that piece. It's like, no, I'm committed to this as a process, to this as a journey, that this is how I reach my next level of evolution. And I'm wondering, have you given to any thought to how you can bring your followers into that experience, that inner journey? Because that's what I'm sort of wondering, if that's one of the futures of art, is not just art as a finished product. Here's the thing I made after 300 hours. But how can you invite people into the 300 hours with you? And I'm curious, like, what does that bring up for you?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And that's one of the most valuable things of social media, I think, is the ability to just on a whim share a little video or some
Mhm.
sequence photos or a little conversation where you can can invite people, as you say, into this part of the process. You can show time lapse sequences. You
Yeah.
can talk about, I did one recently where I had to change something quite dramatically in a painting and take a leap of faith. And it had a great response. And people really find that valuable, even if they're not artists. It really helps, I think, people understand, um, the very physicality of that painting and the work that goes into it, but also in their own lives. It's art to me has always been a template for living, and it
Mm.
teaches me so much about how to walk in the world, how to feel into situations and circumstances and be able to navigate in a way authentically and with inspiration and with faith in the journey and in the process, even when it doesn't make sense or doesn't I don't understand the bigger picture in that moment. I can really just relax into where things are at in this moment. And so that painting process, being able to share, um, is a huge part of that. And so, yeah, definitely process photos. And I'm not like when I get in the zone with painting, I often forget to take process photos or videos. And so I'm not necessarily like a poster child of how to do Instagram. I'm learning and I'm like cultivating willingness around it. But when I'm in
Mhm.
the studio and really in the zone, the last thing I want to do is like pull out my camera and like figure out lighting and then to have to edit a video after is like not something that's like super high on my inspiration level, but it is something that's exciting and I do see the reward of it. And so I am doing it more. One thing for me is that I've been teaching now for 12 years. And
Mm.
a few times a year, I bring together a group of students and have these anywhere from 4 days to 12-day painting retreat workshops. Yeah, come paint with me.
Sign me up.
And this is like all levels. So sometimes it's professional painters that come and they just want to give themselves a little vacation and retreat and be fed and held and pick up some new tools in their tool belts. And other people have never painted or haven't painted since they were a child and were shamed for it, or there's so much trauma around the creative process.
Mhm.
And one of my life's greatest missions is to support and cheerlead people in their creativity so that they can unlock aspects of themselves and really tap into that faith in the journey so that they
Mhm.
can actually use that as a template in their life and feel liberated creatively, or at least as a part of the process. And
Mhm.
so, and it's not all easy. Like at the closing circle, you hear again and again people say, "Oh, I thought I was just coming to a painting workshop." And they're like bawling and they've had like big catharsis and really unlocked parts of themselves. It's not all super fun. Sometimes
Mhm.
there's some challenging moments where like you've never painted before, you have this image in your mind and you can't just type in a few words and have something beautiful. You have to sit there and really work at it hour
Mhm.
after hour after hour. And everybody around you is also doing that. They're also wrestling their inner critics. They're combating
Mhm.
those voices from childhood that said that they're not enough or that they're not creative or to get a real job or whatever it was that deterred them from their creative passion and path. So that, like, the process of learning to paint, that to me is one of the most valuable, or learning anything really, is
Mhm.
one of the most valuable things that we can do for our own self development. Now, I do understand that there's a learning curve to using Mid Journey and learning how to navigate AI. And so I don't have a lot, I don't actually know that much about it. I haven't actually used it because I don't want to spend time learning I don't want to spend more time on the computer. I want to spend more time in
Sure.
my studio or in my
Yeah.
yard or with my family, or I want to spend more time in reality. There's so many things that are on devices into tech these days, and I feel resistance to that, while also still acknowledging that it is a very handy tool and I do regularly use technology. Here we are using technology.
Yep.
Grateful,
Yep.
amazing. I don't understand it. And as you saw, you're like trying to teach me how to like go live or whatever. And I was like, oh, no, let's just do this.
Oh, it's
So
perfect.
um, that's my husband's job. He's the tech guy.
Yeah.
But to really, even if you've never made art, or if you've never done yoga, or if you've
Mm-hmm.
never made a soup from scratch, or if you've never learned to do a cartwheel,
Mm-hmm.
anything that we embark on that has engages different parts of of our minds and engages different parts of our bodies, and there's a learning curve too, that you can see the progress as you practice it.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the fruit of like knowing ourselves and wisdom comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come from instant gratification. That just makes us hungry for more. Instant
Mm.
gratification just, now if I can't get my meal in a minute and a half from McDonald's, I want it for free. Like that's not fast enough. Like
Yeah.
we just want things so instant now that
Mm-hmm.
it just is not actually satiating us. It's just making us hungrier. And so
Mm.
when we can slow down and learn a new skill, even if we never use that skill again, but just sitting with the process,
Mm-hmm.
the like crunchy, sticky self-talk of, oh, I suck at this, but I'm going to keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
wow, I see actually I'm getting better at it. Like I did
Mm-hmm.
20 shitty cartwheels in a row, and here I am. I just nailed it. Like, how exciting is that? If you
Yeah.
were just instantly good at cartwheels, like boring. That's
Yeah.
you don't get the fruit from that. Some people are
Mm-hmm.
innately good at things. That's fine too, but they're always going to be pushing themselves forward.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how advanced we get at something. We're always I think something innately human about us is that we're always wanting to grow and to
Yes.
like expand into new horizons. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's the constant quest of any artist is that you're never going to paint a painting as good as you can paint a painting, because every
Mm-hmm.
painting teaches you. And if you were to start that painting again, by the time you finish it, you would start it differently and you would do it better. So you're
Yes.
constantly moving forward. You're
Mm-hmm.
constantly like every cartwheel you do, you learn from. And then your next cartwheel, or, give or take a few, is going to be even better. And we're constantly growing.
Yeah.
And that's where like it's the practice by doing, not practice. I'm not a practicer. I actually really don't like, I don't do like exercises as far as like art or really anything. I
You're like,
just
I
I
do. I practice on every piece.
Yeah, exactly. I believe like practice by doing. So practice more in the like, practice isn't a thing. Practice is a way of being. And so the practice of
Mhm.
art, the practice of meditation, the practice of yoga, the practice of walking in the woods and silencing our minds and listening to the birds, like this is a practice. And the sticky parts where we fall short of perfection is where we grow. That's where the fruit comes. It doesn't come from the perfection.
Yeah, I love this. And I love that idea of like, I put practice isn't a thing we do, it's a way of being. That this is, it's not, we're practicing art. We are in the practice of art, that we are using art as a spiritual discipline to awaken new depths of ourselves. And I love that idea of unlocking creativity. So for you, as you are encouraging people, and I know that most of our listeners are creatives of some kind, female entrepreneurs, they are passionate, they are creative. How do you, like, what would you recommend as just practical steps for unlocking more creativity, more expression, more freedom, more sovereignty in their work with their art and playing with their muse, as I would call it?
Hmm. Well, there's sort of this old paradigm or myth, I think, that people say, you know, art is right brain and business is left brain. And
Mm-hmm.
so the starving artist is always going to be a thing, and that's why artists suck at promoting themselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely 100% disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I think that art is, or that business is very creative. In fact, it's mostly creative.
Yeah.
Doing your taxes is not necessarily, you can get creative with it, but it's like that kind of
Thunderstorm.
like like number stuff and that kind of things, there is
Yeah.
aspects that is left brain that you just have to show up, but there's a lot of aspects of creativity that is also left brain. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
time goes into a painting, but you're just sitting and like focusing and showing up, and it's not this like whimsical like, oh, I'm just gonna be in creative flow and inspiration. Like that's chaos, that's like pure inspiration and flow, and sometimes you just need to get to work, and for hours and hours and hours you need to focus.
Mm-hmm.
So business is like that. I think it's about being like listening and paying attention to the public, to your own creative calling. It's adapting, it's trying new things, it's not getting hung up on something just because it worked last year and now it's not working. Is there like, do I need to just keep pushing through and like and stay with this because it feels right, or do I need to let this go and not actually be attached and
Mm-hmm.
just be adaptable? I've tried so many different products and various avenues and worked with different companies that I just, they just naturally fall away. This is not working. Like I don't really need to put my art on leggings. It's not really that, like that doesn't light me up. But I tried it because it's cool. Like
Yeah.
sure, but not everyone's a big face on their leg. Like it's not really appropriate. It works really great for some people, from like more abstract
Mm-hmm.
artists, for sure. But I don't need to, I like, it doesn't feel important for me personally to
Mm-hmm.
commodify my art in that direction. I do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
other ways. And so also like looking around at the business world of your peers, knowing that just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Just
Mm-hmm.
because they're painting glowing donkey faces over a sunset and it's selling doesn't mean that if you do that too and paint the donkey in the sunset, that it's also going to sell. Like,
Yeah.
if that's not coming from your authentic expression, it probably
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to resonate with people. So don't just be a copycat, but pay attention to what's
Yeah.
working for other artists, because something there might be a good key for you. And so to just really be paying attention, be really willing to engage with people, ask questions, and be
Mm-hmm.
willing to, like, for any expression, for any creative entrepreneur, being willing to engage in dialogue with people is so key.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's one of the things that I learned the most from having that restaurant, is that I was there like 7 days a week, 70
Mm-hmm.
hours a week, like just there, and my art was on the wall. And sometimes people didn't know that I was the artist. So people would come in and they would talk about it. And so I'd overhear, or they'd
Mm-hmm.
talk to me about it and I'd be able to engage without them realizing that it was me.
Yeah.
But then also just being able to talk about it and being able to stand beside it or behind it and say, I made this to the best of my ability. You can
Yeah.
take it or leave it. Like that is very, very empowering to do,
Yeah.
to not to come to a place, which is a practice, again, like
Yeah.
always, a practice to not rely on approval and to not be crushed by criticism, but to really still pay attention and be willing to converse with people.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's nothing less attractive as far as like a prospective buyer than to ask what the price of a painting is, and you say $500, like that does not inspire confidence and does not make them want to buy that painting. If you say $500 or $5,000 or $50,000 and you're confident and unattached as to their
Yeah.
response, then they will either see the value or not.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that's going to argue and say it's worth more, or somebody that's going to say it's worth less.
Yeah.
There's always going to be critics. The best restaurants in any city will still have critics that just want to just criticize.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it just wasn't your best plate that went out, or
Yeah.
the chef was having a bad day, or like there's so many different factors. Or
Yeah.
maybe the person like had something super sweet just before they came in and they can't taste the nuance, or
Mm.
there could be so many different things that are going on. So to not take it personally,
Yeah.
when it doesn't land for an individual, to just say, all right, like
Mhm.
unattached, and to still be willing to show up again and again and again and have conversations and introduce yourself and introduce your work and to present it to the world. You have to be willing to show people. If you want to make, if you want to be a dance teacher, you have to be willing to dance in public.
Mhm.
You can't be apologetic about it. Even if you're really good behind closed doors,
Yeah.
you can't, apologize for being seen when somebody's
Mhm.
looking. And to me, when somebody is creating from their heart and from their spirit flowing through, they're creating from an authentic place. That's what people resonate with, because it's not made from me, it's made
Mhm.
through me. So,
Ooh.
really, just allowing that art to flow through gives me permission to show up in the world, to do my best, to share it with the world, and to not take it personally if somebody loves or hates it. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
I work my ass off at it. I show up for hundreds of hours at a time in front of these paintings. Somebody that's writing a book is going to sit there and they're going to diligently carve that book out of nothing.
Mhm.
They're going to really like pour their heart and soul into it. But if it's that good storyline or that beautiful poetic turn of phrase, when it flows, or an
Mm.
idea comes for a painting, when it flows, or someone knows the dance steps so well that they fly across the dance floor and it flows and you resonate with that. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Like,
Mm.
that is what people respond to. So
Mhm.
we can't actually take ownership of it.
No.
There's a lot, there's like a good 50% of the creative product that we actually just transferred. And
Yeah.
maybe we've really honed our skills to be able to show up as the clearest channel possible. Maybe we
Yeah.
do our practices and we really work hard at staying in service to that divine inspiration. But if we can if we can truly channel that, then we only get credit for part of it.
Mm.
I'd
Yeah.
say I have this concept that if it impresses you, that's because I worked hard at it. If it moves you, that's because I got out of the way.
Yeah.
So both are true. It's that masculine, feminine, that in breath, out breath. It's both. And we
Yeah.
need to really be willing to release our sense of ownership around the creative flow so that we can be in service and to let the magic through and really trust that that's what people
Oh,
respond to.
so beautiful and so many great insights in that last little bit. So definitely go back and re-listen to that, because what I'm hearing is that this is a dialogue. It's a dialogue between growth and pleasure, yin and yang, right and left hemisphere. It's a dialogue between work hard and get lucky. Like, it's a dialogue between I do the work and my muse shows up. This work versus flow as well. And I don't know who it was, an author was like, yep, I only write when the muse strikes. She just happens to strike at 9 a.m. every morning,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And this idea of like,
Pressfield, Stephen
yeah,
Pressfield.
when you show up with discipline, you're creating that open channel. You're habituating your imagination to show up instead of crossing your fingers and hoping that you'll have a good idea. So there is this beautiful exchange of the work and the flow that happens in real time that I love. And what I'm hearing is egoless art. It's I'm doing it for the birthing of something bigger and more beautiful than myself. And I'm recognizing that I'm a vessel. And that it gives me permission to not be perfect. It gives me permission to not be attached. It gives me permission to just show up as authentically as I know how to be in this moment, and to increase my craft every time that I do a work. And that's so freeing, so liberating, so empowering, to just know that you are the vessel for the work that you're doing. I love it. I know we're getting to the end of our time, so I want to really quickly remind you guys to go to at Autumn Skye Art on Instagram or Facebook. Definitely check her out. Autumn, do you know when your next retreat is coming up, or where can we find information about your next artist retreat?
Yeah, I've got a few. I have two in May that are full. Well, the second one is for my alumni only, so for my past students. So I think there's still two spaces in that one. It's a smaller group,
Mhm.
but the Heart of Art is currently full. You can get on the waiting list for that. That's a
Beautiful.
4-day, no experience necessary, so it's all skill levels welcome. And then I have another Heart of Art, which is the same. It's rooted in realism, and then it's to also support and empower the intuition. So it's all skill development and techniques, and like from the ground up, and then also a lot of creative play and curiosity, and just really trusting that inspiration flow. So it's very much that dance of left brain, right brain. That's 5 days in August. They're both on my website under events. And those are both hosted on our property Heartwood on the Sunshine Coast of BC. And then I just yesterday announced in collaboration with the Academy of Visionary Art, 12-day painting seminar in Italy in September. That's at
Oh.
Torre Superiore. Is a beautiful eco village in the Southern Alps, and it's beautiful food, beautiful castle. And I've taught there before quite a few years ago, and it was really magical. And so that's really great. And that's going to be on the theme of the archetype. So
Wow.
that'll be more figure based. Again, no experience necessary. It definitely helps to hone your skills a little bit if you are a little rusty, but even if you just show up and you've never painted before, you will be supported every step of the way. And then I also have an online 3-hour painting tutorial that's available on my website. Those are all on there. So you can,
Beautiful.
yeah, come and paint, and then just stay curious. I really just believe in like creative play, and regardless of what your vocation is,
Mhm.
playing in other modalities only is going to feed your main focus. So if you're a cook, learning how to dance is going to make you a better cook. I truly believe that because we are training the channel to open to inspiration.
I love that. So, yes, beautiful. I'm like so excited about September. I'm like, how do I make that happen? That sounds amazing. I love it. Well, just again, it's autumnskyeart.com or at Autumn Skye Art on Instagram, Sky with an E, Skye, art for our listeners. Thank you so much, Autumn. This has been so just personally inspiring, that knowing that you followed your intuition, you did the work, and that the universe supported you, right? This is the work, and I'm so grateful to be reminded of that for every area of my life. So thank you
Mm.
so much for being here.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you for the work you're doing to inspire and empower people as well. And thanks for inviting me on.
My pleasure.